Alrighty, here we go again. And as I teased before, I have a special treat for you guys. Check it out. Notice anything a little different here? That's right. 3 opponents. I've decided to play some multiplayer EDH online. I've been very reluctant to play this format pretty much since I started playing EDH in the first place, which is, I guess, a little bit ironic given that that's the fundamental spirit of the format and the reason why it was created in the first place. But as a long time Spike Magic player, I've always been reluctant to play multiplayer games of Magic, primarily because obviously the design of the game is balanced around 1 versus 1, and as a Spike and someone who's always made winning my foremost goal when I play, I've tended to incur the ire of people I've played against whenever I have played in multiplayer games in the past. And sitting at a table while 2 or even 3 people gang up on you because they determine that what you're doing is unfair or unsportsmanlike or not in the spirit of the format or whatever gets a little bit obnoxious after a while. And believe me, I've tried. I've played quite a few live multiplayer games, probably at least 20 to 25, and some of you guys probably laugh at the notion that 20 to 25 games of multiplayer is a lot. But given my disdain for that format in general, I assure you that is quite a bit and has required a lot of tongue biting and patience putting up with the shenanigans. The decks that I play in real life are exact duplicates of the ones I play online, so they contain a fair amount of high value cards, which also tend to get people to come after you directly. You know, when you open up the game with Mishra's Workshop and a Beta Volcanic Island and so on with the Nin deck, people go, "Oh man, you got all these expensive cards, you must be dangerous," and they come after you, and it just gets obnoxious playing that over and over and over again where you're just ganged up on. The one advantage of playing online, however, is that while I have played against numerous people who also play EDH multiplayer, I've played against them 1v1, there isn't a full overlap between the player base. There are a lot of players that I don't recognize playing multiplayer, and as a result of that, I feel like I can fly a little bit under the radar, at least for a while, playing this format, and I won't have people just automatically out to get me from the beginning. And another big advantage, too, is that the prices of cards on Magic Online are not anywhere near what they are in real life. So, for example, some of the most expensive cards in EDH, like Imperial Seal and Mishra's Workshop and Mana Drain, are of relatively trivial cost online. I think Imperial Seal costs upwards of $700 or $800 in real life, and I think online it's $5 or $6. And Workshop is considerably cheaper than that, and obviously it's worth $1,000 in real life, and Mana Drain's $250 or $300 in real life, and online it's like $10. But anyway, you get the idea. And Mana Crypt is another card like that. So because you don't get the automatic moneyed impression playing EDH online, you don't tend to incur like the same kind of wrath. And this game is actually quite a good example of that. But I've had to refine and revise my strategy. In fact, many of you guys listening probably are more versed in multiplayer dynamics than I am and have a better understanding of not only which cards work best in the format, but kind of how to go about your strategy. I think one of the things that I've heard said numerous times is that you always want to be the guy in second place. You don't want to be first. You don't want to be overtly first because then you get ganged up on it. You don't want to be overtly last because then you're recognized as being vulnerable and people will make an effort to wipe you out before you can get back in the game. So you kind of want to be second or third place and doing whatever you can to project that impression on your opponents. So, without further ado, the first game in this new series of multiplayer Magic. EDH. Alright, let's see here. I am playing Nin the Pain Artist, which seems appropriate, and my opponents are Reaper King, Kalitas, Trader of Get, and Rafiq of the Many. I've actually played against this Lost King guy before, and he recognized me too. I may bring up some of the stuff in the chat, although I'm reluctant to do that because of comments. It all gets printed out right at the start, even though obviously the comments were said throughout the game. So I think I'll just paraphrase what people are saying. But they all say hello, and then Lost King mentions that, "Are you the Brian Weissman?" and recognizes me right away. And another guy also kind of echoes that same sentiment. So my whole plans for flying under the radar go right out the window at the very start. Fortunately, the game doesn't unfold that way. I have a very keepable hand, and you notice I've got a card in my hand that I don't normally play in 1v1 Nin. And in fact, I think I've made a total of 5 changes to the deck. off the top of my head, and I may forget something here, but Rhystic Study is in. I'm playing with the Consecrated Sphinx. I'm playing with Academy Runes. I'm playing with Keranos, God of Storms, because I think he's incredible, absolutely incredible in multiplayer. And most importantly, I'm playing with Winter Orb, because Winter Orb is, well, I've been reluctant to play that card in 1v1, because obviously it sort of runs counter to what the deck is trying to do. Massive mana ramp and using the general to draw tons of cards. In multiplayer, the potency of the card is so strong that you often have the ability to just outright win the game, especially because it can just literally take out two players single-handedly on one turn. You can just kill two people effectively by getting them when they're tapped out and all of their mana is underneath the orb, and then you're just dealing with one guy. And while the other two guys grumble and slowly rebuild, it allows you to just isolate and kill one person, and then it's 2-on-1, and then you can usually win from that point. So the Winter Orb is how my other 1v1 decks have done particularly well in multiplayer. It's actually one of the reasons why I've been reluctant to use Nin in multiplayer, because without Winter Orb, which is obviously I don't normally use it, the counterspell strategy just doesn't work. You can't contain 3 people at once unless you get very, very lucky with a ton of ramp early and get Nin going and multiple shackles in play and stuff like that. But most of the time, your counters are super ineffective, and people gang up on you because they don't like their stuff being countered anyway. And along those lines, for multiplayer, I've removed a fair amount of the cheap single-player isolating cards, including Spell Pierce and Daze. I'm not using Dismiss because it's too clunky of an effect, I think. Keeping 4 mana untapped in a multiplayer game is just no good. And you're not really effectively drawing. You are drawing one card off of it, but you need to recognize that the value of a single card is reduced substantially when you have 3 opponents. So Dismiss doesn't really draw one card. It kind of draws like a third of a card. And for 4 mana, that effect is just not worth it. And I'm also not playing Amnesia, because if there's one way to get massive angry player aggro, it's to Amnesia some guy, and then have him devote himself entirely to trying to kill you, Scorched Earth style after that. So I'm not using Amnesia, though I have regretted not having it a few times. I'm also using the big Teferi, the 6 mana Teferi Temporal Archmage, because he's completely incredible. And I've actually thought about using him for a while, but when you develop a little bit slower and you've got more breathing room, those bigger, expensive, bomby spells have a better place in the deck. Anyway, I've talked for like almost 8 minutes about this, so I'm going to move forward with the game because it's going to take a while. I have, like I said, a keepable draw, and top with a fetch land means I can probably get to 3 mana effectively. Slam down this Rhystic Study, potentially copy a Soul Ring because there's 3 opportunities to get one, and go from there. And I did not win the die roll. Unfortunately, this Reaper King guy's going first, so here we go. These guys are chatting, sending messages. Close that. All right. Jungle Shrine from Mr. RARBYH. Myriad Landscape. Another card that I should definitely consider using in multiplayer. I think the card is considerably better in multiplayer than it is in 1v1 because you've got, again, more breathing room, and that effect is pretty powerful. Getting 2 basic islands out of the deck is really nice. So I may be adding that. I have the Academy Runes in there now because Veldican Shackles is so fundamental to your ability to beat multiple people, and having the Shackles killed early can really cripple your game plan. So being able to get it back is super powerful. Plus, obviously, you can get back Orb and other things like that. All right, nothing dramatic. Turn 1, no Crypts, no Soul Rings. All right, 1 Power Stone's pretty nice. I'm just going to play the top here. And I'm leading, of course, with the Reliquary Tower, not only to look more innocuous, but also because I want to be able to use the Polluted Delta to reshuffle if there is no land on top of my deck. All right, turn 2, Felwar Stone. Such a good card in multiplayer. Such a good card in regular EDH. Actually, that's kind of funny. I guess regular EDH is multiplayer. But not to me. Alright, he just taps out, so he doesn't have to worry about other people's turns. That guy does basically the same thing. Charges Calciform Pools. Kind of a weird card to see in Rafiq. But whatever. Ah, nice. Thought Vessel is excellent. So now I can fetch Guilt-Free here. And you can actually see if there are any other changes here. Yeah, so there's the Sphinx. You know what, actually, I guess oh no, there it is. There's Academy Runes. Okay, so Academy Runes is in there. Any other changes? There's Keranos. Absolutely insane in multiplayer, I think. Especially because it's such a it's such a deterrent for people attacking you, and the effect, the static effect, either side of it is so good too. It allows you to kind of patrol the board and do other things. There's Teferi, and I think, where are you? Yeah, this guy's in here too. This may become a full-time card in the deck. I don't have quite enough bounce to make it worth it, but honestly the damage doesn't matter, and I do have a lot of theft, so I can steal the Drake back. But Gilded Drake is a card that I felt like I've wanted for a long time. There are just certain commanders that you really need to be able to steal them rather than countering or killing them. Things like Tasigur. Like stealing a Tasigur with Gilded Drake. Yeah. Great. Thank you. Stealing a Tasigur, for example, is amazing because often they can just replay it for practically nothing. So Gilded Drake really helps with things like that. And I love the fact that the theft is essentially permanent, barring a bounce spell. Any other changes? I think that's it. Actually, well, yeah, obviously Winter Orb too. So there you go. I'm going to play the Thought Vessel here, and then I can use the Divining Top in a turn. This replay is clunky. Let's see what he's up to over there. Scuttlemutt. I can't say I'm surprised to see that, given that it's a Scarecrow and it makes more mana. So he's got his Reaper King next turn, for sure. Lost King's just going to go get more swamps. Everybody just develops their mana more on this turn. He's got Kodama's Reach. Alright, so, first Crossroads here. Oh, and I used a top at the end of the turn. I think it was just a land on top. Okay, so the question is, play Rhystic Study or develop mana. And obviously if I increase the mana supply, I can play either Solemn Simulacrum or one Power Stone. I don't want to play the Simulacrum because there's a very good card on top. The Teferi is in there. And due to that fact, I absolutely want to draw it because it effectively doubles my mana for a number of turns if it survives. And that allows me to take the role of two players in the game. So I'm not gonna play the Solemn Simulacrum. That leaves it down to Power Stone or Rhystic Study. And along the lines of what I said before, is trying to be not the guy who's leading the board, but the guy who's like second place. I feel that if I just develop mana here, it'll probably keep me flying under the radar. If I play Rhystic Study, they're going to perk up a little bit, and I think it's going to make them mad. So we're not going to do that. I'm going to play the Power Stone instead, the intention of just using Volcanic Island. As much as I might be able to draw tons of cards off this, I don't feel like it's worth it, that the risk is, at this point, worth it. Alright, so he's tapping mana. He could play his Reaper King, and instead he casts Witchmaw Nephilim, a card I have not seen ever played against me in EDH. So that's the glory of multiplayer EDH. You sometimes see stuff you don't normally encounter. And a Gold Mirror to pump that guy to 3/3. So he's still got 3 cards in hand, and we'll have 4. This thing could get very big very quickly. So we'll see what Lost King is doing. I may actually just copy it with the Metamorph, just as a deterrent. Westvale Abbey, and he plays Liliana's Reaver. Okie doke. That seems to go well in theme with this thing. The whole zombie, getting zombies, he must have something to do with zombies. Alright, Rafiq of the Many comes down. Alright, so there's the Teferi, and there's Factor Fiction on top as well. So we're definitely going to just get the Teferi right now. Untap 4 spells, and what to do next. Number of choices here. I could Metamorph something and play Nin. I could Metamorph and leave mana untapped. I could play Solemn. The Factor Fiction would be pretty nice, but it may not be necessary. But I kind of want the Bloodstained Mire. So again, Solemn Simulacrum's out of the question. I'm just going to make this guy. And I am absolutely going to copy this because it has Death Touch. And I'm going to cast Nin. So just fortifying here, not looking particularly aggressive, not attacking anybody, being a good cooperative multiplayer thing. And this guy casts Swords to Plowshares right at the beginning of his turn. And when I see that happen, my brain just automatically assumes, oh god damn it, he's just swordsing my Nin or swordsing my guy, because I'm so used to my multiplayer experience being everybody ganging up on me. But actually, that Swords is headed over at Rafiq for some reason. So I'm overjoyed. That's not only a huge threat that can potentially kill Teferi, but it means that this guy's directing his attention at poor old Hey Ted, and he plays Cranial Plating. That Nephilim is already a 7/7. Now it's 11/7. And it attacks that way at Ted. Crazy. People attacking and interacting with each other. How beautiful. Alright, he takes 11 and throws the plating onto his Scuttlemutt to make it a 6/2. Cool. Alright, what's Lost King up to? He just plays more mana. And an arena. 4 cards in hand. So this guy's looking pretty dangerous, actually. Right now, I actually feel that he's probably the most dangerous of the 3 of them, especially because he has played 1v1, and he recalled playing against me. So he's got a fair amount of mana and plays got 8 plus an arena. So we're gonna be thinking long term about him. I'm not too worried about Hey Ted over here, and this guy's got some janky stuff going on. But honestly, I'm not terribly worried about the Nephilim either, not yet. Especially because I can just kill it with the Reaver. All right, Swift Steel Boots. And he casts Unexpectedly Absent for 2, and again, because he's grumpy that he got attacked, instead of, say, killing my Nin, which is what I always expect, he's doing it on this thing. And he only does it for 2, which I find a little puzzling given that he's got 2 more mana available, but I guess he really wants to just charge instead. I would have put it 4 down for sure if I was going to cast it at all. Alright, look at this. We got to fully untap. Alright, time for Solemn for sure. An island, and I can untap all of them. And look at this. Loaded up Nin with a ton of mana. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mana available already. Fantastic. That's a draw 6 effect right there. I'm just going to hang back, even though I could attack Hey Ted. I don't see any point in doing that. Just keep my deterrent out there. Megalonoth. 6/6 Vigilant Trample. Alrighty then. Whenever it blocks a creature, it deals damage to that creature's controller. Funny. Alright, Scuttlemutt takes another big bite out of Hey Ted's face. Alright, so Lost King draws a card, draws 2. And I guess he decides it's time for his general. Things for a little bit. And casts Main Step Vampire Tutor. And I guess it's just because he's pressing F8 or whatever, which allows you to just yield for the rest of the turn, which is why he's casting the Vampire Tutor now. Obviously, I would never do that if I was taking the game seriously, because what you tutor for might dramatically change when 3 people take their turn, but I can understand why he's doing it. And he does not attack with the Reaver. Alright, down comes Rafiq again. He does not equip it, oddly enough. Alright, end step. Blow up Simulacrum. And while I would have liked to kill the Solemn Simulacrum in response to this guy casting, because it exiles creatures when they die and he gets a zombie, I kind of wanted to leave my mana open against Ted's turn in case something crazy happens. So even though it means I draw 1 less card, it's a considerably safer route. Boom, draw 4, or draw 5. Beautiful. And I get Forbid and Karn Liberated off that. Karn's a card that I'm actually a little on the fence about in multiplayer, honestly. The effect is incredibly powerful, of course, but 7 mana is a big ask, and it's another card that really puts a big target on your head. People don't tend to ignore this guy because he gets big so fast. So I'm a little nervous about using Karn. I mean, I have it in the deck for now because it's so powerful and flexible, but it may be a card that could be cut down the road, potentially for something that's a little bit more inconspicuous. So I think about casting Karn before I'll actually go through the motions of tapping all my mana, and I realized that if I cast Karn, what exactly am I going to do with it right now? Nobody is really picking on me. I could potentially say eat the arena or something, but I decide that I'd rather just continue to fly under the radar here and put more mana into play. And I just cast Ristic Study. This seems like the perfect opportunity to do it, given that we're further along in the game. People can now opt to pay for this. It's not going to feel as oppressive, and it seems like a good opening to do it. They'd probably say, oh, well, he's got Nin plus creatures in play and tons of mana, so him drawing cards isn't going to matter anyway. So I'm just going to chill here. The intention of just either shooting and drawing some cards with Nin or casting Fact or Fiction end step. Alright, there's Nephilim back. Why, yes, I would like to draw from it. It's already replaced itself. You cast that Prophetic Prism. Gotta let me have it. And I draw another card off of that. Study's insane. I've in multiplayer games that I played against enough times, I've just seen like how ridiculous this card is, because there's always some joker at the table that just doesn't respect the ability and just lets one opponent draw a bajillion cards, and it's so frustrating. So it's nice to be on the offensive part of that interaction rather than the defensive one. All right, cranial plating on Megalanoth, and here it comes, going after Ted again, and I think Ted gripes about it. Ted says, "Why are you attacking me?" Down to 15. Done. Unfortunately, Lost King has plenty of mana to do his stuff while paying for Ristic Study, and he understands the card well enough. You can see him tapping 3 right there. And I don't get to draw off it, which is fine. Still, like, Sphere of Resistance for every opponent is another incredible ability. Ristic Study is so good in multiplayer that I think it's one of those cards that I think that their rules guys should look at in terms of banning. It's too powerful. It gives way, way, way too much of an advantage to one player because the effect affects everybody, and can literally just allow you to win the game on turn 3 for 3 mana, or maybe even turn 1 if you play it on turn 1 with a Mana Crypt. It's just completely insane, stupid card. So he casts Unnerve, another card you'd never ever see in 1v1. And I think about this for a little while, but because of the Waste Knot and this thing, I guess it doesn't really... Yeah, well, I guess it doesn't... He can sack zombies that he gets from it, though. But because of the Waste Knot and the fact that I don't really want to discard any part of my hand, even though it would cripple these guys a little further, I decided to look like a good guy. And Mana Leak it. Seems like a good opening right now to cast the Mana Leak, given that I've got so much card drawing power as well as Forbidden Hand. This makes me look like the hero anyway. I didn't say anything about it, but I should have. I think Lost King says something like, "Oh, I thought it would go through. I thought you would mind. Do you want those people to discard?" But not with Waste Knot on the table. All right, finally equips. Journey of Discovery. Sure, go discover some lands. Unflinching Courage. So he's casting Armadillo Cloak on Rafiq. So now it makes sense. This guy's playing some sort of Voltron-y Rafiq thing that's designed to just double strike and pump up his general. Suddenly this thing's pretty dangerous. 6/6 double strike with lifelink is 12 damage a turn. It's pretty scary, actually. Fortunately, I've got Karn as a long-term answer to Swiftsteel Boots, though I don't have an additional ability to kill off the general. But I kind of get the feeling he's going to attack RB anyway. And sure enough, off he goes. RB blocks with this guy, thinking that it's going to deal the damage back to Rafiq, but that's not how your own creature works, man. So Ted takes 4. That would have been funny if it just outright killed him. In fact, if Cranial Plating had been on... Actually, I guess Cranial Plating was on it, yeah. So he took 11 right there, but then he gains it all right back, which is unfortunate. But these guys are done. I get to shoot my guy for 2. I decided that that's probably better than casting Fact or Fiction right now because it's just free. And I get Jace and Negate. Very, very nice. And I love having this Reliquary Tower out right now, too. And step, we're going to charge and look at the top. Nothing exceptional, but there is a Mox Diamond, which is nice. It's like putting 2 mana out for the turn. Okay, so the question is, do I deal with this threat right now, or do I let these guys tangle with each other until one of them drops dead? And I decide that there's enough of a feud going on here that I can probably continue to stay out of it. As long as I keep Mr. Mono Black under control, I think that these guys will just tear each other apart because they're both grumpy at each other. And with that in mind, I'm going to continue to make the more defensive, innocuous play of casting Keranos, which is so strong right now, given the fact that I have Devotion. So not only is this a perfect Nin sync for shooting, given that it's indestructible, but it's also a massive deterrent to any further attacks because it's a 6/5 guy that can't be killed in combat. So this is really cementing my position. I'm very, very glad to have the card in the deck. I'm going to untap 4, keep Teferi around, and we're just going to chill. Because I can shoot Keranos for a boatload while these guys squabble. Alright, there's the Reaper King. Absolutely no reason to counter that, because the ability is the only thing that's dangerous. And I still feel like if he played a Scarecrow, he would probably just mess with Hey Ted anyway. Alright, down comes the Reaper King, plating on Nephilim. Big again. And despite the fact that Ted is lifelinking and gaining tons, and I still have this general in play, or this Planeswalker in play that's been giving me unbelievable amounts of mana. It's generated like over 25 mana during the game. He goes after Ted again, even though he can't kill him, leaving all of his defenses down. So he's just charging during instep. King goes up to 6. So I wish I had Amnesia in my deck, because I could Amnesia Lost King away and get him out of the game. Liliana of the Dark Realms. All right, well, that is removal, and I strongly suspect that Ted thinks that I'm a threat here. So I think that if he plays the Liliana, he can kill at least Nin, and while I would be able to draw cards off of it, it would remove my ability to have Devotion for a little while, which would be obnoxious. So I decide I'm just gonna continue that plan of constraining one guy and negating it. And he casts Sword of Light and Shadow, which we absolutely don't care about, given that he's got no creatures in the graveyard, and I don't care about pro white or pro black anyway. He's just done. He doesn't attack. And that was a strange move on his part. I mean, I guess this is a little commentary on multiplayer politics, but the fact that he didn't attack Ted when he could have just wiped him out of the game is interesting. I guess maybe he just assumes that he needs Ted's help to deal with me, and that maybe if he leaves Ted in the game, Ted will go after me and potentially kill me. So I can understand why he did it, though it still seems like maybe it's a little bit out of the spirit of the format, but that's just the way it is. Steel of the Godhead. Crazy. All right, the Voltron craziness continues. He lets me draw despite having whatever 7, 8, 9 mana available. Happy to draw another card there. So that thing is big and dangerous. That's 16 points of lifelink damage and general damage. What's he up to there? He removes a bunch of counters. And before combat, he casts this Imperial Archangel. Now, if he had cast this after combat, I would have countered it in a heartbeat. But the fact that he cast it pre-combat is very interesting. I think about it for a long time, and I think about how big of a threat is this. I can't kill it, though I have incredible card drawing ability now and can probably get to Muddle the Mixture or Rift relatively quickly. It does kill my Planeswalkers as well. It's super annoying, but at the same time, he hasn't attacked yet, and if I countered the Imperial Archangel, he might take his sights off of this Arby guy, because he right now has the ability to kill Arby, because Arby took some first strike damage, or he took some Rafiq damage earlier, and he's about to get hit for 16, which means that he'll be dead and out of the game completely, and I don't have to worry about him anymore. So with that in mind, even though this thing is a total menace and it's a 5/8 Shroud, I decide to let him have it on the hope that he will go after his nemesis. And sure enough, smash. Goodbye, Arby. We hardly knew you. Down to 2. All right. Excellent. End step. Channel a huge amount of mana. That's 9 mana through Nin. Shoot Keranos for 7. And get Bribery and some junk. All right. Force of Will drawn as well. God, this is crazy. All right, well, now I just need to deal with this one threat. I'm not honestly worried about this creature particularly, because it's only 5 damage a turn. This thing is absolutely deadly and needs to die now. So the last turn of when I reveal the spell, so I can actually shoot down the Liliana of the Liliana's Reaver, which is quite nice. All right, 7 mana. Karn Liberated. And Mr. Teferi has certainly done his job. I'm going to remove the shackles, or not the shackles, the Swift Steel Boots, of course, the thing protecting his Voltron creature. Teferi's done his last noble effort for the cause. Bye, dude. You were very, very useful. And I'm going to play my bounce spell. Bounce that guy back to his hand. Play Fellwar Stone. Play land. Done. This guy has no offense of any kind. He's just got some dorky creatures out. No way to really affect me. Because of good old Keranos. Ghost Caller. Ghoul Caller Gisa. Alright, no big deal. We don't care about that at all. He's just done. Alright, so he plays an Avon Squire. Of course, I don't care about that. He pays for Ristic Study. Casts Rafiq. And at this point, Time to unleash the Forbid on him. And I'm actually doing this. I'm casting the Forbid over something like Dissolve, which will allow me to scry. Primarily, and even though it activates the Waste Not, although of course you just get some useless black mana. But I'm doing this because I actually am going to try to force a concession on Ted. I think that him seeing that with only 2 cards in hand and me having Forbid and all these cards in my hand, he might just scoop it up even before attacking. And sure enough, that's exactly what happens. He just scoops out of frustration before he attacks and leaves me with both of my Planeswalkers up. And unfortunately, because he concedes that way, the Forbid goes to the graveyard. I can't buy it back because there's no target. He conceded with it on the stack, which is kind of brutal and a little bit clever and funny, actually. One way to deal with Forbid. It's almost like time stop when someone concedes. But either way, adios. Hey, Ted. See you later. Now there's just one dude, me and Lost King. All right, I'm going to charge and use my top. Put the Chalice on top. I know that that's dealing damage. During upkeep, I assign 3 damage to that, and of course he sacks to pump his guy up. That's no big deal at all. Alright, I'm carning a card out of his hand to get Karn up to 7. I'm bribing him. He's got some smattering of various zombies in here. There's some good ones like the Grave Titan and so on. Mind Slicer, this thing's so evil in multiplayer. And Shoaljud's pretty good too, but I don't really have anything to reanimate with it. But he's got Sidisi. I figured he might have the 6/6 flyer that allows you to Demonic Tutor, but he's got something basically just as good. Sidisi. I'm going to gobble up the Liliana. Tutor for... Let's see. All of my opponent's lands are tapped out. There he is. The Polar Bear of Doom. Just going to make some more mana here. Wasteland one of his untapped lands. Cast the Chalice. Cast Winter Orb. And this, my friends, is a completely unbeatable board position. Lost King untaps. Draws 2. And packs it in. So there you have it, my first full multiplayer game that I've posted with an actually modified deck that was designed specifically for multiplayer. I think I do have one other multiplayer game that I posted about a year and a half ago, but I haven't really looked into the format since then. I do plan on playing a lot more of these, and am absolutely open to suggestions from anybody that's very familiar with the format about cards that I might be overlooking or cards that shouldn't be in the deck, as I'm still relatively new to the multiplayer dynamic. But I thought that this game was a pretty good demonstration of my overall philosophy for how to approach the format. And hopefully I'm able to do that in future games, and hopefully I get some great replays. I actually do have one other one that I played with my Nin deck maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, but I played it on my laptop and don't have the capability to record there. It's a fantastic game too, and has a really interesting kind of twist conclusion. And so I will try to record that one and get it onto YouTube in good time. But in the meantime, I'll be playing some other games, most likely with Nin, because it's just a blast to play with these adjustments. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Please leave any feedback or commentary about this new direction for the channel if you are so inclined. And I will see you all later. Take care.